once they are accorded the opportunity. In studio today, I am joined by a woman who needs no introduction, Mizinga Melu. Madam, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Keno, for having me. Really appreciate.
You are most welcome.
Thank you.
So before we get into the conversation with Madam CEO, I will just say a little bit about her. Mizinga Melu is an experienced bank executive. She has been the CEO and Managing Director of Absa Bank Zambia, formerly Barclays Bank, since April 2017. She has won numerous awards and was most recently named the 2020 Zambia's Banking Executive Officer of the Year by the Global Banking and Finance Review. Ma'am, you have served as the MD and CEO of Standard Chartered Bank Zambia.
Yes.
You were the Managing Director and CEO of National Bank of Commerce in Tanzania.
That's right.
And you also served most notably as the CEO of Barclays Africa Management before assuming your current role.
That's right.
Am I correct?
Yes, you are.
So those are top tier positions.
They are.
Leading positions that you have held.
Yeah.
And it's really testament to your leadership qualities, your leadership characteristics. And right off the bat, I just want to ask you, what do you think are the traits that a leader needs to possess, according to you?
Yeah. So I mean, firstly, I always give it, I always give thanks to God's grace, because I always say you don't get into all these positions that you have mentioned just because of yourself and because you're good, but firstly it's got to be God's grace. So I always give thanks to him. But when you look at the traits that a leader should possess, and I think firstly, you and I were talking about this before, I think it's just important, I talk about when, and I say I talk about it just because I'm writing a book, and in the book I talk about what, it took for me when I was first appointed as CEO in 2008 for Standard Chartered. And my boss asked me, I asked my boss then, who was outgoing, what does it take to be a great leader? How do CEOs behave? And he said, just be yourself. So leadership has a lot to not leaving who you are behind. Who you are behind has to come in front of what you're trying to do. So I think that's the first thing. And I think secondly, you can't lead alone. If you lead alone, then you're not leading. You're just running on your own. You need the followers. Exactly. You need the team. So a great leader will have a lot of people, a lot of big teams that surround you. And that, and if you are able to get them totally involved in your agenda, in your vision, it stops being about you. Then it becomes about, yes, the organization, but all of you as a team. What are you trying to achieve? And that's what leadership is. Leadership is about, yes, I'll bring my whole self. Let me have my team working with me, agreeing on the vision and the agenda, and let's lead. And let's lead. And it's about being servants of the people. You talk about servant leadership. Right. Really, servant leadership is about, I'm not going to lead so that I look good. I'll lead so that my people look good. So yesterday I have a conversation where I have a top 50 with my Absa team, and we have this very, very rich conversations. And there was a conversation where we're saying, if you're going to lead on your own without the team, then it's not going to work. And leadership is about when you have those guys and they're able to have a testament that we can bring everybody along. And somebody asked the question, what does it take for a leader when you say a leader has failed? So I always say, when a leader does well, then it's not you who's done well. Yeah. It's about the team has done well. But if the organization doesn't do well, then something happened to you. So it's about the team.
Understood. That is very compelling. The fact that it's not self-centric.
No.
It's never really an individual thing.
No.
It's about getting your followers or your membership to buy into that vision.
It is.
And to work towards something perhaps bigger than yourself.
It does. Yeah.
So, because you have held these really, really high positions in your career, consistently so.
Yes.
Positions that are difficult even for men to attain.
Yeah.
Let alone women.
Yeah.
How did you find yourself in a position where you were have attained and continue to do so, this high level positions in your career?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's more on, and increasingly so, I'm seeing it, that with, it's not, before we used to say, how do you get to the top of the organization? And we still have to work very hard to have many women especially get to the top. And it's always exciting when you see a lot more women being appointed to the top. But the biggest challenge now is actually not how do you get to the top, but how do you stay, at the top.
Exactly.
That's staying power, being able to be resilient, to be persistent, to understand that, yes, there's a vision to achieve, but it's going to depend a lot on overcoming, the challenge. That's the biggest thing. So for me, you say, how have I managed to do that? I think it's taken a lot of resilience, a lot of, because I always say, the glam that people see on the faces of the CEOs is not always what happens behind. We have deep issues we are all dealing with in different organizations. But it's how do you remain confident that if I could lead at NBC where I had a lot of issues, if I could lead at Standard Chartered where I had a lot of issues, and the same God saw me through, and they saw me through, there's no way he's gonna let me down now. Exactly. So you just have to have that confidence that once God has appointed you to the position and it's your time, you are there because you have got to be there, right? Yeah, because God has appointed you there. So you are not alone. So it's to understand that you are not alone. God will put the right people, the right angels to surround you and see you lead. So it's always, you always have to have that confidence. You always have to continue reading. I always say, the reading culture is important. You always have to keep current. You always have to have the right conversations. Gone are the days where I had a boss in the past who, if I wanted to have anything approved, I have to follow Manchester United, just because I was his team, right? So I had to make sure that I follow his team. Right. And, if they've won football that weekend, then you can rush to him and say, Gavin, can you approve this? Like, gone are those days, right? You don't have to do that. Exactly. Yeah.
Wonderful. So, because as a woman being a female,
yeah,
you are.
Yeah.
And sometimes that always is some sort of stumbling
right.
the career or the advancement of
yeah.
a woman.
Yeah.
Can you sort of have your cake and eat it? Balance the family life and still be this go-getter, ambitious
Yeah, woman? Yeah. You know what? I thank God for my husband because he has been extremely supportive. And I think the unique thing about my career has been I have worked in different countries and held different positions and still have had a successful marriage. So and still have had children in the process. My youngest is only 11. So being able to balance that, you do need a supporting family. But it's also important to recognize that family in the African culture is a big advantage to us succeeding.
Yes.
When you look at how people in Europe succeed, I worked in the UK and one of the biggest challenges there was I had to get an au pair to look after my son.
Right.
And an au pair, like I used to almost give him half my salary, give her half my salary just because they were expensive. Right. And, they could knock off at 5, didn't have to go beyond. So it was that part of the world. It's difficult to bring up children. Yes. It's difficult to succeed as a family. And hats off to people who succeed in that part of the world. But when it comes to the African culture is a big advantage of who we are. So when you look at how do you bring up children, it's the village that brings up the children. Exactly. So you've got to look at the village. You've got to look at your sisters and your cousins and say, they will help me look after my children. And for me, that's what it's been all about. Yes, my husband has been supportive. However, I've had the village help me with the family. I just know that even if I work late, there'll be the village, there'll be my maid who's going to be there to support.
I understand. So you've spoken about, as a CEO, there's the glitz that we see when we see you, and we think that, everything is perfect behind the scenes. But obviously there are challenges, that you encounter even on your way up to an executive role. So are you able just to share some of those challenges and what it is that helps you to persevere through some of the challenges that you have encountered?
That's a great question, because challenges in the end seem to be an everyday today issues that we face, and I face challenges all the time. And I've got to a point where, believe it or not, I say, we thank God for challenges, because after you overcome, you've had a big challenge and you've overcame, you can only get better. So one of the challenges that I'll share is probably when I was working in Tanzania. Tanzania was great.
Right.
However, it was a Muslim culture as well as the Christian culture. So you have more than 50% of Tanzanians are actually Muslim. I am not a Muslim. I am a born-again Christian. And it was difficult to lead when you've got to understand the culture where you haven't been brought up in that culture. You've got to understand that for individuals that you are leading, because you are leading individuals, you are leading a team, but they're individuals. You have to understand that on Fridays you can't have meeting at lunchtime because they've got to go to the mosque.
Exactly.
You can't just call meetings at odd hours. How you dress, so I'll tell a small story where, we used to entertain our Muslim clients when they're having their fast,
right.
And they're breaking the fast, as a bank would go and sponsor them. And there was a time when nobody had told me, so that's another challenge. You need people who would tell you the truth.
Exactly.
Nobody had told me that as a Muslim, when you're having a function, even if you are not a Muslim, you've got to dress up like long, like everything, all the works. So I am for the older I get, the shorter my dresses get. I kind of enjoy them that way, but without exposing too much. So I would go into the wardrobe and say, okay, so this is my shortest dress.
Exactly.
And my shortest dress wasn't long enough for them. And I didn't know that, because I thought, because I'm Christian, I don't have to comply to how they dress.
Exactly.
So, and I was addressing the function, I was speaking, and you could tell that the audience was looking at me and blankly looking at me.
Right.
That was one of the biggest challenges I faced, because to make up after I did that really took a lot. And thank God I had another event that came like 2 weeks later, and where we were hosting the president of Zanzibar then. So we kind of moved from Dar es Salaam to Zanzibar. And did I not dress up like everything? Yes. And I made up. And the crowd was so happy. They're like, yeah, you've done it. But I faced different challenges. But that's just one of the challenges. It's a culture challenge.
Right.
So as I've worked in different countries, understanding the culture has been a problem. And, South Africa had its own challenges as well, and sometimes you face those challenges, but you overcome and you grow and you're able to talk about it and tell other colleagues that if you ever live in Tanzania, dress up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it teaches you perseverance, endurance, and resilience. Overcoming the challenges. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will continue this conversation with Madam CEO right after this short break. Welcome back to the show. We are still here speaking with the Managing Director of Absa Bank Zambia PLC, Mizinga Melu. And before the break, where the CEO was talking to us about the challenges that she has encountered in her career and how she has been able to persevere through some of those challenges that she has faced. And she was talking about, cultural understanding when you are working in different countries and you encounter different cultures. A basic understanding of the culture is helpful, and when you don't, it can pose a certain number of challenges that may operate as a stumbling block in certain instances. So, Madam CEO, speaking of challenges, I think it's important for us to also speak about the kind of partner that you have in your life, in terms of helping you to spearhead your career, especially as an ambitious woman, a driven woman. So how has that been in your experience? How important is it to have a partner who understands and supports you?
Yeah, so we're talking about when you have a partner who is not afraid to make you shine. I think that's, for me, is powerful. And you have a partner who and that's how my husband is. My husband doesn't mind, and that's the most asked question he gets from people. How do you feel that your wife is always in the limelight? But he's always like cheering me on. So when you have somebody, your husband as your cheerleader, your children as your cheerleader, your family as your cheerleader, it's important. But with a partner, it's not just about them cheering you on. It's about them understanding that your job will require you to work late. Your job will require you to work in different countries. And for you to succeed, like you say, you had to leave your children behind for a year last year. And he supported you. Hats off to him. So you need a partner who will understand. And that's the biggest challenge our women leaders face. Yeah, because sometimes they don't stay, the staying power. They don't stay long in position because it's difficult to balance it. I see it with different members of my teams over the years. When you transfer them to another department and they'll think, what about my husband? And I'm thinking, okay, but that's the only way you will get to the next level. So it's how do you work with them so that they see the end game and not see the journey. Yeah, so the journey is an interesting journey, but it's a journey to who you want to aspire to be. When I was always aspiring to say, I want to be a CEO, the only way I could have done that is to get experience of different different organizations, different departments, different countries, because it's being mobile is one. And it's interesting, at least in the banking sector, you always be asked the question, are you mobile? And you better not say no. You should always say, yes, I'm mobile. Like when? Because if you say you're not, then you're like, okay, if you're not mobile, then it means you can only do this job, but you can't do that job. And you need a supportive partner. So having a supporting partner is like one of the biggest success factors.
It's make or break.
It is. And there are single women a lot as well who you don't have to worry that, they have their own challenges. What about my children? And for me, that's where the concept of the village comes in, especially in Africa. We are totally blessed, the fact that we have a lot of people we can look up to.
Very, very. And even just my own experience. Drawing from yours. It is a very delicate. It is achievable. It is challenging because as when we get judged. For sometimes ambitious, even for being successful. Sometimes, but I think about. What your ends. And when you have that, what makes that.
And also it doesn't mean when you are absent, when you are absent, then you are away from the home, because you can be present and still be absent, which is why I always talk about cooking from the boardroom. I'm sure when you were in South Africa doing your program, you knew exactly what they were going to have for dinner. You knew exactly what they were going to have for breakfast. So sometimes we are judged in the eyes of men, because for men, if you are absent, then you are totally absent.
Correct.
For women, we are very present. In fact, sometimes we are more present when we are absent.
That is an excellent point.
And my team always says, Mizinga, maybe you're better off when you're working from the office, because when you're at home, then it looks like you are really present.